Hi guys, welcome back to the First Impact channel. This is David, and today we're going to be playing Dragon Ball Super Butoden 2 while talking about Dragon Ball Super episode 49. Now, let's just jump right into this, guys. I'm been feeling incredibly divisive about this whole episode. I loved it, but I also had some serious problems with it for a lot of the same reasons I have been and for newer reasons because yeah, there are some things going on. So let's just start off with a small synopsis, like always, guys. The beginning of this episode is taking place, obviously, right after Trunks wakes up from being horribly injured. And we see him throw the punch at Goku, and he catches it in his hand. And that's where the last episode had ended. So now we're here, and everything is kind of intense. Everybody's kind of freaked out. Everybody's confused as to why Trunks is freaking the hell out. Well, there's a moment in which they're still fighting. Well, Trunks is still exuding the effort to push Goku back, and Bulma slaps him and kind of snaps him out of it, sort of. And it's interesting that he's like suffering from what Rhyme Style is affectionately calling PTSD, which I think is hilarious. But that is essentially what it is, and he is incredibly correct there. So when this happens, Trunks snaps out of it, and Beerus and Whis are still there peering over. And it's interesting to me because he kind of course, has the whole let's breathe it out, let's talk about what's going on. And he, of course, fills in the fighters with what's happened because, people need exposition. And so that goes on, and Pilaf and gang and company, yet again on the lull train, as the kids say. They're still kind of playing into this whole, oh my god, illegitimate son thing. And it's kind of funny. It's still pretty humorous. Still getting a lot of fun out of this whole peel off gang thing. It's pretty enjoyable. But that's still happening, and there's still a lot of further mixing of the names. They keep hearing Trunks. They keep hearing all this that, and the other. Like, well, how is this Trunks if that's Trunks? So that joke is being drugged straight into the ground, and I'm out. They spent a little too much time on it, but that's fine. That's exactly what I'm doing right now. But the episode does start to pick up a little more interestingly because we do start getting a little extra information from Trunks as to what's going on with Black and who gave him the name. And it's funny because they come up with this little conversation where Bulma's like, that's such a cliche name, Black Goku. This is right after Goku says that it's very cool. It's cooler than his name, is what he says. She's like, oh, that's so cliche. And then Trunks, of course, regrettably informs her that, yes, your future self definitely came up with that one. Future self and me. Good old South Park reference. But yeah, that was kind of enjoyable, kind of funny. They do have a little bit of a conversation with the Pilaf gang in which they're in the time machine and Bulma's looking over it and can't quite figure it out. So they're bumping around and Pilaf makes this little joke and he's like, have you tried pulling this switch? And he almost pulls a lever, which I find to be interesting because we had just talked about this in the last episode. How much of Pilaf is, how much of their intent as they were as adults is still there? That's a question that keeps raising up, and it's like, oh, were you going to try to go back and kind of in time, kind of thing? And the thing that I find to be hilarious is that they make you think about it for a second, and then they just play it off as a joke because it, of course, shows Pilaf still in kid form lose a 100 zenny coin piece, and he was trying to get something from a vending machine. And I just thought that was hilarious the way that they had played it off because they keep kind of hinting subtly, and there seems to be a lot of deep foreshadowing going on with a lot of things. Um, and I just think that's great. But Bulma eventually knocks around in the time machine and finds that, hey, here's some notes from my future self. So she starts understanding the time machine and is telling everyone that, hey, you'll be able to go into the future and handle this, of course, with the aid of Goku and Vegeta. And so that all occurs, and we get a little scene with Piccolo and Krillin, and they're of course still back at Goku's house, still sitting on top of all of the cabbage, which is also kind of hilarious. Goten and Chi Chi come back, which I really don't remember where they were going. And here's the part that actually really kind of bugs me. They're just like, oh, yeah, something happened with the time machine, and maybe that happened, and maybe I'm just having a moment. Please let me know in the comments. But Yeah, I thought that was sort of funny and kind of weird, and it just really didn't seem like they even really needed to be there. It just seemed like a waste of time. They're like, oh shit, let's just draw something so we don't have to give too much away about our story plot, you know? But that is just me being a little nitpicky bastard. But they inform Piccolo and Krillin of the situation, and they're like, oh, well, let's not waste any time and go check on what's going on. So it's cool to see that they're still staying involved and concerned, and so they take off incredibly quickly. Which I might want to I want to add that it looks very cool actually. Like the amount of speed they use to actually get them up in the air and just take off, pretty darn cool, and it looked really nice and crisp. Goten, of course, for some reason, because the plot demands it, starts heading that way and takes off slowly. And it's funny to me because Chi Chi, of course, latches on and is still doing the same old tropey thing she had done before, but like, oh, well, school's more important. He's like, Mom, the world could end. And she's like, that's school work's more important than the world ending. And I was just like, this is typical Chi Chi. I do like this. This is funny. But it goes back to the Z Fighters where they are at Capsule Corp and Trunks is still talking to everyone. And he happens to realize that Beerus and Whis are standing there, and he's not really sure who they are and doesn't really question it until somebody refers to them as a Kaio-sama, and he's like, "Oh no," freaking out because they bring up how time travel is a serious felony, and I find that little bit of information to be incredibly interesting. And I want to know if that is the Galactic Patrol's kind of jurisdiction, or is that something that the Omni King holds in place? And the reason I think that it could be something that the Omni King holds in place is that it's even illegal amongst the gods. And I thought that that was pretty strange. And we also get this neat little tidbit of information that Whis is saying that he is also still not a god, that he's just merely an attendant. But for some reason, I still don't really believe that, and I feel like something weird's going on with that whole situation at still this time. And I'm not really sure why they're doing that and why this is still being so mysterious. And hey, maybe they're not. Maybe they're being forthcoming and serious. It just doesn't come off that way. But I mean, that's all fine and dandy, whatever. We will learn more about that very, very soon, I'm sure. But it's very, very interesting to me that they even brought that tidbit up, and this is something that I think is a big deal. We now know what's going on with the timeline, basically officially. I mean, obviously these are fan subs, so we can only wait for Toei to okay everything. But basically, from what we do basically have confirmed now is that the timeline is being explained finally. So the way that it's working, and Whis actually explains this, is that the reason that it's outlawed, even amongst the gods, is for the same reason that you would expect with a lot of sci-fi. The whole butterfly effect situation. If you're unfamiliar with what that means, it just basically means that any small action in the past can drastically affect the future. And that's always fun. I always have enjoyed that kind of thing in science fiction. And yes, it is overdone, but you know what? That's a fun thing. And this is why we even have Trunks. Okay, so if you don't like that, then I don't know why you're liking Trunks. It's kind of silly, but it's very, very cool to see that they're doing this and finally kind of explaining it, even for us people who are adults bitching about a kids show like I'm doing right now. It's just nice to see that they're even willing to kind of put that in there. Although I still think this show is having issues, and I think the show is still not really putting its best foot forward, and that's unfortunate. But the show is still very fun and entertaining. Not much has changed with Dragon Ball's consistency, other than it getting a little tighter. But I wouldn't say that it's any worse than what Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z were. So that's a fair assessment, at least to me. But I do expect better things from a big franchise like this. But to further kind of expand upon this whole time travel thing, the way that Weiss explains it is that obviously the butterfly effect applies. So if something changes in a time stream, the future can be drastically altered, and apparently that is what's gone on in Trunks's current timeline because, well, that's what's happening. But it's funny to me because that actually would explain a lot. That would explain everything with Mai. That would explain everything with Black Goku, at least, with the limited amount of information we have about him right now. So that does explain quite a bit, at least. So now that we have that info, we can basically make some assumptions. And one of those assumptions is that we could maybe guess that Black Goku is a some sort of Makaioshin, or an evil god, if you will. And that is going to be really interesting to see if that's actually the case. And I actually kind of hope that it is, but we will see. What we do know, though, is that something starts going on because we start seeing Black again in the timeline of Trunks' era. And he is, talking to himself like a crazy person, wondering where Trunks is. And he can't find him anywhere. And he starts putting it together that Trunks has gone back into the past, and his time ring starts activating and starts glowing, and it opens up a rift, and it cuts off from there at the moment in time. So after Beerus and Whis have explained that things can change, we now have an explanation as to why things are so different now, which it kind of explains everything in a way, and I'm glad that they're doing that. I just think that they're being incredibly general with it, but that's fine. The show doesn't really need more than that, and that's okay. But it's interesting, and I forgot to mention this earlier as well. And of course, I keep saying that things are interesting because I'm way over interested. Vegeta earlier on, after the whole debacle with Goku and Trunks, and I really wanted to touch on this. He asks Trunks, "Oh, you still need that thing?" And Trunks puts it on and kind of almost gives a smile or something. And it was just really weird, though, the way that it's put off. But he's like, it just makes me feel comfortable when I wear it. And I've heard a lot of people talking about this, and I'd kind of put the assumption together as well. I remember Trunks' sword breaking in Z, and he doesn't have it when he goes back into his timeline. And we don't really even know exactly where he gets it from the first place. This could be something that Gohan gave him that was a byproduct of Piccolo's magic. It could be a lot of different things. The whole point is that it's not there, and now he suddenly has one again, and it's doing stuff that, at least to my knowledge, we haven't really seen it do. We're seeing key projection. We're seeing an all-around toughness, really, and it even handled Deborah's like cement spit, because I'll get to that here in a moment. And yes, I did say Deborah, but there's going to be some exposition from future Trunks, and we see this from a flashback, and I'm gonna touch more on this here in a second. But my theory is that this is the Z sword that Trunks has. It is projecting key. It is pretty darn durable so far, and we can even remember Goku Black being attacked and being hit and cut with it, and it doesn't really damage him. I mean, it damages him, but the sword is fine. It even swings back to Trunks. So that's pretty darn interesting to me, and I'm hoping that it's a Z sword because he did train with Kaiosama, and I wonder if Kaiosama, at least Supreme Kai, gave him the sword, and it just never happened to break. And I would find that to be pretty interesting, very cool, and I'm hoping that's the case. That would make me very, very excited, because we do, as I had said before, get a little exposition on something pretty darn cool and interesting. Trunks explains what happens to Vegeta, and now I'm getting out of chronological order, and I apologize everyone, but these are just pressing matters here apparently. But when they're talking about the whole situation, they ask who they were fighting. This is before he even explains who it is, and he tells them that's why I freaked out. This is why I attacked Goku, because this is the threat that's going on, and you guys all know what's going on with Black Goku right now. So once that's explained, it's it, it's very, very, very interesting yet again to me, because we see him talk about fighting Deborah, and because Vegeta, of course, asks if it's Majin Buu, and Buu never even comes in his timeline, as Trunks reveals. He ends up just fighting Deborah and Babidi, and has a cool little fight with Deborah. But here's my problem with this part of the episode that really kind of pissed me off a little bit. They did a lot of these like still frame things, and yes, I've been complaining about that lately, but it's really getting worse and really lazy. Like, yes, they're trying to cram like a lot of stuff into this whole episode, but really actually just kind of bugs me that they kind of half-ass this whole like possible awesomeness that we would get with Trunks and Deborah having a legitimate fight that isn't halfway, a standstill frame. We get a couple of bits of most like moments of movement, and we also have this really strange, like, the very beginning of the fight, we have this super strange, like, distortion of art style, and it's, like, kind of a big step away from what was going on typically here. And it would almost be, I guess, what we could see something like it, but it's usually in a lighthearted moment. it's not usually in a serious moment like this, and it's kind of sucky that that even had to happen that way. But it's still very cool to see them kind of go at it anyway. But he destroys both of them, and Boo never comes. But he does say that he gets training from Supreme Kai, and this is where I draw my he might have the Z Sword thing from. But we still don't exactly know everything that's gone on in that time period or what he's learned. But moving on a little further, Trunks and Goku talk more about this Black Goku character. Goku wants to know how strong this guy is. So he decides to ask Trunks for a sparring match to see, kind of, to get a feel for what's going on. And Trunks starts out the fight, and he agrees, obviously, and he starts out and he just jumps straight into Super Saiyan 2, which we've never seen him do, by the way. We've only ever seen him at what a lot of fans call Ultra. I'm not really sure if that's an official thing. I've always called it that, and I've never heard it called anything different. So correct me if I'm wrong in the comments or tweet at me, let me know, guys, just to kind of expand my knowledge from you guys, because I know you guys know a lot about the show. And yeah, that would be interesting to kind of get some clarification on if I'm incorrect. So, but we see these guys get into this fight, and Trunks just goes Super Saiyan 2. He's ready, he's about to just whoop some ass as much as he can, try to prove himself, show what he's done in the past couple of years. And everything goes crazy because Goku, of course, just turns Super Saiyan 2 as well, just to kind of match him. And they go toe to toe, and Trunks starts pushing him back. And little Trunks is like, "Go, future me," which is hilarious. And he's like, "Oh, he's even pushing Son Goku back." And that's when, of course, the match changes. And he's like, "I'll come at you with my full power." Trunks says this, of course. And Goku's like, "Fine." And, they're duking it out. And then Goku's like, "Well, how about a little more power?" And Goku turns Super Saiyan 3. And Trunks has never seen this before. And he kind of is taken back, but he still keeps fighting. He's like, "Fine, I'll go full power as well." So he just jumps into the sky and brings out his sword and swings it down on Goku. And it's a really cool little scene. And I forgot to mention that Bulma puts over like a little energy barrier to kind of contain some of their energy, because it's making the whole like sky black and swirling with energy and like electricity. And pretty darn cool little scene. The animation with this is actually not too bad. It's actually drawn out. It's pretty cool looking. And I'm enjoying what's going on. Even the transformation for Goku, I liked its quickness. It was smooth, quick, and it looked good and consistent with what had been done before a lot. So I did appreciate that. But their little fight goes on, and Trunks comes down with that sword, and guess what happens? Goku beats his ass again, just like he did the first time they met. Catches it with two fingers, and Trunks is just amazed. And they kind of are like going at it, so he's still holding it, and he just jumps up, pushes him back, and then just hammers him straight into the ground. And then the barrier breaks, and Trunks is down and out. And he asks Trunks at the end of their battle, he's like, "Where do I stand with this kind of thing?" Essentially, and I'm just paraphrasing here. And he tells Goku that he is on par, or if not stronger. Which, as we all know, Super Saiyan Blue has not even been revealed to Trunks yet, which is kind of awesome. I'd love to see his face when that happens, if he gets to see it. But so Goku gets the feeling, and of course he's Goku, so he's very excited for the possibility of fighting someone new and strong, which is pretty awesome because that's just classic Goku right there. But so they decide that, hey, I have a good feeling for what's going to go on, and they're talking about going to the future themselves and having Bulma repairing the time machine. And then they get a nice little rude awakening because the sky turns that dark color again. And remember when we talked about Black seeing the time ring light up, he walks right through and he sees Trunks and says, "Oh, that's where you've been." But then he sees Goku and he says, "So your son Goku." And that's very exciting because that is right where the episode ends. So the fun part about this is that earlier in the episode, we do hear a little more exposition, just a tiny bit. And it's cool because we know that everything is illegal, all this, that, and the other. So it does make Black Goku's his true identity to be more interesting. And when Trunks was talking about him a little earlier, he says that all Earthlings will be punished; they will be killed for justice. And for whose justice, I'm very curious, and that's also a big plot point that I'm very, very interested in because it's like I don't want to say he's a Tuffle, but I'm really wondering in the way that they had kind of like pushed it, at least, it's like he's either a tough hole, which is unlikely, or he's a god of destruction, which is probably a lot more likely. To see what the ramifications of this whole situation is gonna be very interesting. And as I said before, I still uphold the opinion that the Omni King will get involved. Or maybe somebody higher up from the Galactic Patrol that we don't know about yet. Maybe a new character. Maybe this mysterious Green Kai that we've heard about a lot lately. So there's a lot going on here, guys, with all this stuff, and there's a lot of speculation to be had. But keep this in mind. I think maybe we might get the reveal that it's the Z Sword. Maybe we'll see some really interesting stuff come of all of this. I'm incredibly excited. You guys now know how I feel about Black and where I'm kind of starting to stand with all of that. And yeah, guys, it's going to be great. So leave me comments, send me tweets. Let me know how you guys feel about this episode. Let me know how I can improve the show to make you guys feel a little more comfortable, have a little more fun, and maybe provide you better information. Just a few updates and things I wanted to let you guys know about. I will be getting a new microphone in about a week, so you guys won't have to deal with my terrible peas, which you probably just heard, and I just ruined your ears, and I'm sorry. But yes, those will all be gone. My quality will be going up drastically for audio at the very least, and video, really, to be honest, because I have some new equipment for that as well. So get ready for more videos. My new Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 video will be up soon. I will be featuring comments from Redditors and YouTube fans as well. So if you guys would like to be a part of the new Evangelion video and you have questions and things you want to talk about, it's going to be informational about everything we know about this new movie. So if you guys want to be a part of the episode, please leave your comment and your question, and I will feature you if I feel that it contributes to the conversation. So please tweet at me at the First Impact Show. You guys can send me a message on Reddit. I'm considering opening a new subreddit, and I'm also considering getting an Instagram. So let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below. I'm also thinking about starting a new section for the Super Famiball show. And just for you guys, I want you guys to send me comments and give me questions. Whatever you guys want to ask with my Dragon Ball knowledge in general, or whatever you think is going to happen, let me know. And if I think your theory is cool, I'll talk about it on the show and we'll have a new section. So please give me likes, guys. Give me comments. Let me know what's going on and interact with me, because the show is about us being together, interacting as fans, and getting all the information we can, having as much fun with all the speculation we can. So until then, guys, please remember to have a great weekend and to come on back to the First Impact channel, where we have new shows coming all the freaking time now, guys. So be here. Tweet me. This is your community. This is my community. So let's have fun with this. So until then, guys, come back, because everything is anime.